Okay. Well, hello and welcome everyone to National Distance Learning Week and to today's session. I'm Erin Maney. I'm the Manager of Communications and Community Engagement for SUNY Online. And as we were sharing where we're located, I'm located in the beautiful Finger Lakes in Geneva. I'm also at my dining room table and I am without peanut butter and jelly or pizza. So it's so sad, but it is my pleasure to introduce my colleague and our speaker to you today. We are joined by Alexandra Pickett from SUNY Online. Alex is our Director of Online Teaching, and Alex will be sharing about OSCQR, our course quality rubric, and regular and substantive interaction. So welcome all, and I'll turn it over to you, Alex.
Ooh, awesome, thank you. All right, this will stop. Yes, continue. All right, so I'm hoping that you can see my screen. And yeah, if you're here to learn about OSCQR and regular and substantive interaction, you are in the right place. And I hope if more people join, as you join, you'll share, where you are and what institution you're affiliated with, so we can get to know you a little bit better. If you have any questions along the way, please don't hesitate to pop them in the chat. I'm going to go over what I want to show you and then take questions, just so that I make sure I get through everything that I want to show you. And I'm happy to, follow up with you if we don't get to something. And Erin will be posting links and so forth in the chat as we go. So at the summit last year, there was a presentation from Russ Poulin, and he talked about the new federal Department of Education regulation addressing regular and substantive interaction. And I remember making a note, an actual physical note, that I needed to pay attention to that and think about that in the context of OSCQR. And so over the summer, we pulled together a group, or early in the summer, we pulled together a working group to really take a look at OSCQR and think about what we might be able to do to shore up OSCQR in terms of the actual standards and in terms of the documentation that is related to each of the standards with the RSI lens. And so for those of you that may not be completely familiar with this new regulation, this is a U.S. Department of Education regulation that went into effect on July 1st, and it gives new regulatory definitions for distance learning that require that institutions ensure regular, scheduled, predictable, and substantive academic interaction. We refer to it as RSI, and this is between the student and the instructor. So this group was pulled together with that rationale, and we had as our goals the intention to review any OSCQR, identify and review any OSCQR related standards to see if any changes were necessary. We wanted to create a dedicated page on the OSCQR website to clarify and really, help to inform folks about RSI. We wanted to update, review, and refresh the OSCQR web materials that are associated with each standard, and specifically any that we might identify that had any kind of, relation to RSI, with the view of making sure that we improved or refreshed how the standard might assist in meeting those requirements. And then we wanted to make sure to update the community. And so this presentation here is one of the ways, and we've done several of these presentations at various times since we launched the new version of OSCQR, but this is one of the mechanisms. This National Distance Learning Week is one of our opportunities to build awareness and share information and collect questions and feedback from our stakeholders on this new these improvements to OSCQR. And then, of course, we want to make sure to promote the use of OSCQR in this context, for this context. So you can see there the names of the folks who volunteered to assist in this work group. They are from several institutions and sectors of institutions. And like I said, we worked from early, like late spring through through the beginning of September, when we launched the new version of OSCQR. On the actual OSCQR page, I have a page that is acknowledgements of all the people who have contributed to the various versions of OSCQR. So if you're interested in the various versions and who contributed to them and a little bit about the history, you can go to that OSCQR acknowledgements page. And I always love to, make sure to recognize those who have volunteered their contributions in these various work groups. We could not have done anything like we have done with OSCQR without the contributions from the volunteers over the years and their work on these various work teams and projects. So let's go right to the first page. It's a new page on OSCQR, and you can see right there in the breadcrumb trail next to Get OSCQR, there's a tab there that actually, has all of the regular and substantive interaction links that are new. These are all new pages on the OSCQR website. This first page here really helps to give a full picture of what RSI involves and entails, what the federal regulation says, definitions, and so forth. I love this graphic, which was created by some colleagues at Empire State College. And they were on the work group, as was Finger Lakes and Canton. And all these folks who were on that work group had already been deeply, exploring the regulation and developing materials to update and make their faculty aware. So they got on that work team because they had already expertise in regular and substantive interaction. In any case, our friends at Empire designed this beautiful graphic, which I think really helps to illustrate what RSI is all about, and to convey that there are it's not black and white, and there are levels of regular and substantive interaction that we want to make sure folks are aware of. And the more that you go towards the green super smiley face, the better that the element that you're looking at is actually representing what regular and substantive interaction is all about. It really is a very narrow scope. It's not the only thing that an online course or an online instructor needs to do effectively and efficiently in an online course. It really is about distinguishing distance education from correspondence courses for the purposes of financial aid. This is how our Department of Education this regulation can distinguish between the two for the purposes of financial aid. And so anyone found not in compliance with this by chance would risk losing financial aid. That's why it's super important. It is a regulation, and institutions and instructional designers and faculty all play a role in, or can play a role in, demonstrating compliance with this regulation, but it is not the only thing that is important in terms of effective practices and good instructional design and good online teaching practices that make a course effective or efficient or well designed or well delivered. This is simply a regulation targeting this specific thing for the specific purpose of understanding whether or not it's a distance learning course or a correspondence course, and for the specific purpose of financial aid. So that said, the regulation went into effect on July 1st, and it talks about interaction. It talks about who that interaction has to be with, which is namely the instructor and initiated by the instructor. And it talks about what substantive means and what regular means. So substantive means it has to relate to the course, discipline, content, instruction, and regular means it needs to be predictable and scheduled, and it needs to be with the instructor and initiated by the instructor. So if it's not initiated by the instructor, if it's not with the instructor, if it's not of academic nature, and if it's not predictable and scheduled, it doesn't mean it's bad. It means that it just doesn't meet the criteria for regular and substantive interaction. It doesn't mean that those things are not important. Interaction between students, interaction initiated by students, interaction that is serendipitous or not planned or predicted or scheduled is not something that this is saying you can't have or shouldn't have. In fact, you should have. This is just saying that to meet and be in compliance with this particular standard, you have to be able to demonstrate that some of the stuff in the course does this, that it is with the instructor and initiated by the instructor, that it is substantive and it is regular. And so here are the specific definitions for you to review, in detail as you become yourself informed and aware about this this regulation. And RSI is not just in the design of the course, but also in the delivery of the course. And so it's important to understand that, so that we can understand how OSCQR can assist with that, and where there are other things that are necessary in order to fully support regular and substantive interaction in terms of the design and delivery of online courses. All right, so let's look at how OSCQR supports RSI. I've highlighted a couple of things here. I just talked about how RSI has to be articulated in both the design and delivery of the course. I think that as the work group went through all of the standards, we found that you can take a really narrow interpretation of RSI, and with that narrow interpretation, we probably would have only come up with one or two standards in OSCQR that very specifically could be, could target RSI. We took a bit of a broader view, so that we actually did alter some of the language of the standards and all of the pages associated with the standards. We refreshed those pages, and I'll show you that in a second. But it's important to know that there are standards and practices that are related directly, and that some are more loosely supportive of RSI, and all of them are overall, in general, effective online course design practices. So because OSCQR is limited to looking at the instructional design of an online course, it's important to understand that narrow scope of OSCQR. In order to assess RSI using the tool OSCQR, the RSI needs to be expressed in some visible way in the design of the course. And so that comes out in things like the design of some of the content, the instructions, the explicit expectations, and then dedicated spaces within the course itself. And those are the things that you can, use OSCQR to test against in terms of the RSI standards. I want to make sure to point this out because, there is much more to an online course than just its design. The delivery of the course is the other half of the coin. And so no matter what you do in terms of the design of the course, if the delivery aspect of it is not there, whether you're talking about RSI or other online effective practices, it will not be in compliance or meeting, high quality standards for the design and delivery of an online course. So OSCQR is just one tool that an institution or an instructional designer or an instructor can use to help them understand how they are articulating or planning for RSI in an online course, but it's not sufficient. It's not the only thing that is necessary to ensure compliance. I just want to make sure to, highlight and reiterate that. Again, OSCQR serves as guidelines to support RSI compliance, and it can be used to support and document how courses meet the RSI requirements. So in general, that's I think what we strove for in the work group in terms of reviewing and refreshing the OSCQR standards, and really tried to make it explicit how OSCQR can support RSI. All right, so things that are new. We have actually 7 standards that we identified that directly address and support RSI, and you see them listed there. And then we identified 12 standards that could be used to support RSI in some way. So here's the more loosely, supportive standards that you can consider when you are either developing a new course or reviewing and refreshing existing courses to look at in terms of, does it make sense to look at this particular standard and add something or shore something up with the intention of supporting RSI. So every standard that we identified as either directly addressing or supporting RSI has an RSI section on the standard. And we have updated the description of the standard, and the examples have been updated and supplemented and refreshed. You will notice that on the standards that are these RSI standards, you will see this little icon on the standard to help have a visual cue that this is one of the RSI standards. And when I show you the rubric itself, I'll show you that the little little dashboard is on the rubric as well to help visually identify the RSI standards. So here is what one of the RSI standards looks like. You'll notice that up in the upper right-hand corner is that graphical icon, and it's a link actually to that main RSI page. If you click it, you'll get back to that main RSI page. that has the big graphic on it, which has the fuller explanation of what the regulation actually is. All of the OSCQR standards have always had an explanation and a little micro learning video associated with it. What's new is that we've added a new section on all of the new RSI standards that is labeled regular and substantive interaction, and how this standard supports our RSI. And again, the little icon is there to give a visual cue that this is the new RSI section. And so in this particular standard, which is standard 3, the course includes a course information area and a syllabus that makes course expectations clear and findable. This particular standard presents how this standard can help to meet the letter of RSI. And so substantive interaction is defined, regular interaction is defined, and some suggestions for what you could do in your course is to include an instructor communication plan in your course syllabus that specifies how, when, where these instructor initiated communications and feedback can be expected. So this is just one idea. Here is an actual example that could be adapted in any syllabus. So just a statement from the instructor that is specifically articulating this notion of regular and substantive interaction. And so it's just a simple idea that if you are an instructor, you can consider adding to your the instructor communication plan to your syllabus, or you could consider adding this intentional statement about regular and substantive interaction as part of the course information or syllabus information for the course. And then, of course, there's always additional resources. We went through all of the materials that were, previously on this particular standard, and we reviewed them and updated them and fixed any, dead links or information that was outdated. And so, so every page that was identified as an RSI standard has been updated in this way. So let me go to the specific standards that address regular and substantive interaction. So those are the 7 that I mentioned that you see here. And you can see that in the language of the standard itself, it talks about either interactions or expectations being clear and findable. Number 29 here facilitates regular and substantive interaction with the instructor. That language is new. Regular and substantive instructor to student expectations are predictable. This is rewritten from the standard that had been there, which was about this, but it just didn't say it in that particular way. This one also mentions instructor to student expectations for interactions, and 41 talks about promoting substantive, regular and substantive interaction. And so everywhere, this one, 43, talks about opportunities for course interactions with guidance and standards from the instructor. So each of these 7 standards, the work group determined really specifically targeted or had elements in it that could be targeted to specifically address RSI. Let me just show you one of them. This one is standard 38, which talks, it's right in the title of it, regular and substantive instructor to student expectations are predictable, scheduled, and that really is the letter of RSI. Here, You want to make sure that those kinds of interactions are described in the syllabus, presented in the course design, and appropriate for the length and structure of the course, and that they are easy to find. And then we have, ideas for you to refresh your course. Things like, maybe a small video, what you can expect to it from me that actually says what you're doing about regular and substantive interaction, setting expectations, all of these suggestions here about making sure students know, if something changes, and making sure that the learners in the course are aware and that their expectations are set if something changes with you and your ability to interact with them. And then giving students an opportunity to practice using the communication tools so that when it comes to having the interactions with the students that they are, and it's a higher stakes type of interaction, that they're able to use those communication tools well. And again, we updated all of the information and the links on this particular standard from the content that had been there before, in addition to the RSI specific information. So that's one example of one of the standards that specifically targets RSI. The 12 standards that can be leveraged more loosely to support and articulate RSI. There's 12 of them, as I said, and I highlighted 30, which is the course provides activities for learners to develop higher order thinking and problem solving skills, such as critical reflection and analysis. On face value, it's hard to see where RSI kind of fits in there, but it does, and it makes sense because an instructor can really ask guiding questions. So that's initiated by the instructor to deepen the learning and understanding in an online discussion forum. And this, any online instructor who understands what it is to have online interaction in an online course, or has worked with an instructional designer, or understands effective practices, knows this, right? So none of this is really new to those of us, many of us who have been teaching online for years and years, and who really understand the power of online interaction and discussion. But this is simply framing this from the perspective of RSI, highlighting it, elevating the fact that this particular practice addresses RSI. And so as the campus, or as the instructional designer for courses, or as faculty in departments who are trying to make sure that they're in compliance with this new regulation, you want to make sure to have this understanding that these kinds of activities initiated and interactions initiated by the instructor actually help you to be in compliance. They're in general, they're good practice, but they also can demonstrate compliance with this regulation. Let's see, include reflection. Yeah. All right. So that basically shows one of the standards that is more loosely associated with regular and substantive interaction. I think if you're interested in reading more about this particular regulation, I've put a ton of resources and references here that we used in helping ourselves understand and articulate what RSI is, and it just gives you like the opportunity for a deeper dive into understanding this standard from multiple perspectives. So I hope you'll come back to this page if you're interested and check it out. I also wanted to highlight and point out that we have a change log, and it's located under the Get OSCQR link, the menu item, there's the change log. And this will show you what the standard used to be and what it was changed to, just in case you're curious. So this one, I think this was the example that I showed you of the RSI specific standard. Expectations for timely and regular feedback from the instructor are clearly stated. Questions, emails, assignments. That was the language of the original standard, and we changed that to regular and substantive instructor to student expectations and predictable scheduled interactions and feedback are present and appropriate for the course length, structure, and are easy to find. So you can get a sense of what was changed for the specific standards, the ones that specifically address RSI, as well as the ones that can be leveraged to support RSI. Those were the 12 additional standards that we looked at. And I documented just really basically everything that we did to the standard. So if someone was curious what it had been before, you can come to this page and really understand what actually was changed. And I went back, not just to cover 4.0, but what the difference between 3.0 and 3.1 was, and further. So in case anyone is curious about the differences in versions, just want to make sure that folks have a place to go to see what those changes have been. So right now, OSCQR is available for download. The new version of the rubric PDF in PDF format is available for download from the Get OSCQR section of the OSCQR website. And if you click on that link, you will be taken to OLC, the Online Learning Consortium, where you can download the scorecard. As you know, in 2016, the Online Learning Consortium adopted OSCQR and made it one of their scorecards, the scorecard for online course quality review. So when you click on this link, you will get to a page like this, and you simply put in your state and your name and that you're not a robot, and it will download the PDF for you. And this is the PDF that you'll get. And so then it's the new version of OSCQR, and you can see, because it says 4.0 here, right here, and it also has the little icons to the left of the actual standards. And so the little icons are next to all of the standards that were identified, either as directly or more indirectly, more loosely supporting RSI. And so this is available now. You can download it and start using it in its PDF format now. We are in the process of updating the interactive version of the rubric and the dashboard, and plan to have those ready and to release those before the end of this year. And so we'll have announcements when those are ready. And we're also working on new videos for OSCQR to update the videos and explain, at this addition to OSCQR. So I think that's all I had planned. Erin, are there questions that I should see, that I should talk about?
Sure. Yeah, so I have a question from Lisa, and I do think that Tonka contributed in the chat as well, so it may have answered the question. But on the OSCQR site, on the RSI regulations chart, Lisa was asking if you could expand on what is meant by explicit reliance on accreditor approval. That was in the instructor row on the site.
All right, let me see if I can
go back to that. So on the main RSI tab.
Yep, I found it.
So instructor row, explicit reliance on accreditor approval. And
Yeah.
Tonka did find some language from Middle States that should.
Oh, perfect. Okay, perfect. So, you know, this really is taken, you know, directly from the language of the regulation. And so I defer to, you know, whatever Tonka posted or found there. I think, you know, whoever your accreditor is, I think for most of us in New York, it's Middle States. They are going to be, you know, pointing to those accreditors and those requirements. And let me just see if I can find the chat again.
Yeah, so the language in the Middle States standard is student learning experiences that are designed, delivered, and assessed by faculty, full or part-time, and or other appropriate professionals.
Yeah, perfect. That's perfect. That's exactly right. Yep. Yep. Okay. All right.
And I just wanted to mention that the microphones are unmuted. So if anybody does want to actually use your mic and chat or have a comment or question, we'd certainly welcome those.
Yeah, we can just chat. There's only 15 of us in here. We can just chat.
Yeah.
Who has a question? Has anyone begun, you know, working with their faculty to help build awareness about RSI? Has anyone used Oscar yet for this purpose? Is there, are there any questions in terms of applying any of the standards? You know, it really is about, I think, making sure, depending on who you are and where your role is, you know, as instructors, I think it's important to be aware of this regulation. It's important to know what you are specifically doing in your course to address this particular regulation. Working with Oscar, working with an instructional designer, I think can really greatly assist in that. If you're an instructional designer, I think making sure that your faculty are aware of this new regulation and taking the opportunity to help faculty either do self-assessments or to do course reviews, depending on what models you have available to you in your context at your campus, to help build awareness and to help make improvements in the design and delivery of the courses. Oscar is a tool that can help you to do that. And for institutions, to give them one tool that they can you know, put in the hands of their instructional designers and faculty to help make sure that they have you know, an awareness and a plan to document and demonstrate RSI in a course, should they ever be asked to do that. And so, you know, like I said, I think, you know, most of us who here in SUNY, I believe, you know what it takes to design an effective and efficient online course and to deliver one. We understand how people teach and learn well online and help our faculty and the design of their courses to meet those effective practices. And so I think that this is just a new lens with kind of, you know, the regulation underneath it that can provide an entryway to conversations with faculty about their courses and to make suggestions for improvements. And that's both from the faculty perspective as well as from the instructional design perspective. And like I said, it's not the only thing that is necessary in a good or well-designed or well-delivered course. And it's just one tool, again, with a narrow scope. It's just looking at the instructional design and what's visible in the design of the course. So more is needed in addition to anything that you might be able to do with Oscar in terms of building awareness and ensuring compliance. But we just wanted to make sure to have a tool like Oscar to help make that a little bit easier for campuses, instructional designers, and faculty. Any other questions? Oh, wait, what's this? The purpose is not to outsource to tutors and other non-instructors. Yeah, yeah. Okay, all right. Well, I think, I can hang out here and we can chat more about it. If anyone has any questions, or we can, we can move on with our day.
Sure. I mean, I will, I know you and I, Alex, are in the next session, so we can hang out here, but I will pull up the closing for this so that, and then if anybody wants to stay, they're more than welcome.
Yeah, so right following this one is a presentation from, oh, I forgot her name.
Jessica Kruger.
And she's from UB, right? And she's going to be doing a presentation. Do you have the title of that one handy?
Yeah, so she is doing regular and substantive interaction. She's doing specific examples from her course.
Yeah, very good.
Yeah.
All right. Well, thank you everyone for joining and for participating in National Distance Learning Week. You can see the survey is there, and you can see other events posted there. Thanks, Allison. Thanks, everyone.
Yeah, thank you. And we did do a recap of day one yesterday, so that's there on that bit.ly, and we'll be adding recordings and slides throughout the week. So check back often. Thank you.
All right. Well, I'm going to hang out here just in case anyone has any questions or they want to chat about anything.